Fail fast. Fail fast. Don't be in love with your idea. Be in love with being successful. Be in love with the customer, but do not be in love with the idea, because ideas change, and chances are whoever you are today is not who you'll be tomorrow if you're successful.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, a serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we are always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Jared Kugel. And Jared started his journey when he was in high school, or sold some left-handed products online, and was also entering into a few business competitions. Went off to college and graduated, and then went into the family business and started to do all products related to tires. Wanted to do his own things, and so he started to share an idea with an investor and got an initial investment to get started. Went through an incubator, tried a few different ideas, including I think search engines for tires, as well as a couple other iterations, and pitched that at the end of the competition. Didn't necessarily work out, and that business got shuttered. But people rallied around him and supported him, and got some additional investments. And are evolved over into a roadside assistance business. It didn't necessarily go quite as planned, but led to pivoting to where he's at today. So with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Jared.
Oh, man, that was good. I liked it. You got everything all wrapped up.
Absolutely. Take everybody's life and condense into the 30 or 45-second version of it. But why don't we rewind and unpack just a little bit? So maybe tell us a little bit about how your journey got started, going into high school, selling a few left-handed products, as well as doing a few business competitions, and kind of how the journey got started there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I never thought of myself as actually very entrepreneurial. What kind of happened was I was needing money to get a car. And my dad said, I'm not giving you an allowance. So if you want money to get a car, you got to just start a business. So I was 14. I had seen an infomercial online. And basically what had happened was I ordered it, came to my house, gave me a catalog of drop shipping suppliers. And I was like, well, what seems like, pretty like an open market. And I'm left-handed when it comes to writing. So naturally I looked at that. I gravitated towards it, did pretty well. And then when going to college, right before going to college, I entered a business competition, ended up making it past the states, went to the nationals, didn't make it there. But then after around, I want to say like 19 years old, I was still in college. I decided to get into the tire business, even though my dad didn't want me in. He wanted me to become
When you went off to college, before, as you're kind of getting into the tire business, what were you initially studying or going into?
Yeah, so I was actually studying entrepreneurship only because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. But then from there, I moved over to marketing, which seemed like a pretty good fit for me. Although at that time when I was in college, marketing was not as robust as it is today, right? It was like on that precipice of radio, newspaper, and Google ads just getting started, basically. And then now when you look at it, we're just so far ahead from those times, right? You got streaming, you got Google, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, so forth. So ended up doing marketing, but I took an e-commerce course back then. And it kind of got my brain flowing on what I wanted to do. So from there, I couldn't really figure it out. I didn't really want to go into finance. And then I ended up getting into my dad's company. But from there, he didn't really want to give me a salary again, if you notice a trend happening. So he goes, it's feast or famine. I'll give you whatever you can make on commission. And I literally was making only commission for my compensation. And it kind of taught me a good work ethic from there, because it meant like you're not entitled to anything. You got to earn it, which I think was the right move. It definitely built my foundation for where I am today. I worked there for about 13 years. I did everything from logistics, sales, warranties, door-to-door sales. After 13 years, I just saw the handwriting on the wall that they didn't really want to evolve with the times. And so from there, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to go down with the ship. I'm going to make the most out of what I know and my knowledge. So I had went on LinkedIn, pitched an idea to a complete stranger. I said, hey, you don't know me, but I saw you speak 5 years ago, which I did. I had seen him speak 5 years ago at like a startup, event. And I go, I have an idea for a tire company I think you need to know about. So he goes, send me a deck. I didn't know what a deck was. I thought it was something in the back of a house. I didn't do nothing. So I hired a random person again to make my presentation. I had a Word document, because I was very good at putting down my ideas, but I didn't know how to make it look nice and organized and so forth. So this guy helped me do it. I think I paid him like $100, gave it to the person who on LinkedIn. And believe it or not, a week later, he made me an offer to be my investor. And he goes, you got to make a decision. What do you want to do? Literally the next morning, I go to my family. I go, hey, here's my notice. I'm done. And that was June 2017. And then from there, I got into the tech accelerator.
What was the pitch deck? What was kind of the focus of it, or what were you pitching at the time?
Horrible idea. It was basically Google shopping for only tires. But the reason why it wasn't really scalable is there wasn't that many retailers online, really selling tires. I mean, there were, you're always going to have your big people, but you didn't have a big volume that you have today. So from there, I got into the accelerator, got mentored. I learned a lot about valuations. I learned a lot about how to raise investment, how to think about a business. I mean, the way you think about a venture-backed business is very different than the way you think of a brick and mortar business. I mean, it's completely different, right? When you're in a brick and mortar business, you care about slow growth, but being really profitable because you're taking home everything that you're making. When you're in venture world, you care more about growth and you solve for the profit a little bit later. And so for us, well, I kind of hybrided the two thought processes because I didn't really buy into the whole startup philosophy, which is grow really fast, lose a ton of money, and at some point you turn it around. I couldn't do that. That would have given me too much anxiety. So I looked more into how I can grow at a comfortable growth rate while still maintaining cash flow positive kind of financials. And so from there, after I got a tech accelerator, and by the way, they got me started by giving me about $100,000 for some equity. Best decision I ever made. I mean, was taking a chance on myself, obviously. Fast forward all these years, we're now one of the larger and faster growing online retailers. But back then, I didn't even think that. I pivoted about 4 times. I was the search engine for tires and wheels, and that bombed. I was a mobile tire installer, that bombed. I was a B2B to C tire road hazard software provider for brick and mortar stores. That didn't do well. I was just regular e-com. That was doing okay. And then today we're really like a full service e-com seller of tires, and that's really what did it.
Maybe just to unpack that. So, I mean, you mentioned a number of businesses, maybe unpack. So were these kind of, hey, spend 1 month, try an idea, it didn't work, move on to the next one? Or did you do it for over a period of time, or you built a business up and they collapsed, or you brought on investors? Or unpack that a little bit more for us as far as kind of
so
what that iteration was a little bit more.
Yeah, I think the big thing is when you're they call it a lifestyle business, right? When you're not venture backed, when you're doing it for yourself, bootstrapping it, you tend to be more in love with the idea. But when you're more in venture backed, they teach you to fail fast. That's what my accelerator taught me. They said, whatever you do, try something, experiment, fail fast, and move on. And so I would typically give each idea about 60 to 90 days. If I didn't see the real light at the end of the tunnel in terms of scalability, I would kill it and move on. Because at the end of the day, I'm not emotionally in love with any idea. I'm emotionally in love with being successful because I was doing it out of desperation. What happened was after I left my family's company, the company eventually ended up closing for a variety of different reasons. My future obviously would not have turned out great if I had tried to go back, right? So I had to make the most out of what I had. And for me, the failure was not an option. I had to make sure that I succeeded. And the only way you could truly succeed in business is separating the emotion from the business, having an idea, experimenting. You have to experiment with ideas because you never know what's going to work. And then you got to fail fast and move on to the next one if it doesn't work. And so for me, there was no failure as an option. Like I had no backup plan. That was it. So I figured, hey, I give myself enough to see if there's any traction with revenue. If there's not enough traction with revenue that I find meaningful, and that's really like a gut feeling, right? Because everyone has a different measurement of what's meaningful. But for me, if it didn't feel right, you just got to move on. And that's what we did. And then we hit our stride. Well, it took me about a year and a half to really find out what we were going to do. And then I would say about 2019, we hit our stride. We started to do well. And then COVID hit, of course. And that just like threw a monkey wrench into everything because nobody was driving for 2 months. And then we kind of pivoted again.
Before we get too far, just one more maybe follow-up question to that. So,
Yeah.
60 to 90 days, have one idea, try it, see if you get some traction. And if it doesn't, move on to the next one. Makes sense. But one thing you mentioned maybe to clarify is, you said, was this all venture backed? So in other words, you had kind of a investor that said, hey, I like this area, go try out these different ideas, or, in other words, was it kind of kind of a blank check and, try out these ideas?
No.
Or tailored, or kind of how did you kind of go about having the funding to try out 60 to 90 days and iterate through a few different ideas to figure out which one worked?
Yeah, great question. We definitely did not have a blank check. When you're an accelerator, they give you in our case, it was $100,000 for a certain amount of equity. Today, things have changed over the years, so probably it's different now. I don't know what the exact terms are from them, but it was about 12 of us. And when I say us, I mean other startup founders in almost like a classroom setting or like a co-working setting. And everyone had their ideas. Now, I was the only one who didn't come from like a Ivy League school. I didn't have an engineering background. I didn't come from a big consulting firm, a big corporation. I came from my family's business, and my knowledge base was really around the industry and around operations. And I had to teach myself. And from there, they teach you to fail fast and try things. Now, what you do within that time frame is up to you. But if you're out of money, you're out of money. Like there is no going back for more. Now, in our case, everyone was fundraising at the time because that's the assumption when you take an offer from an accelerator that you're going to fundraise. So we tried to fundraise a lot, but people just were not buying into the whole concept of tires online. Every time I would pitch my idea, they'd say there's too much competition. They would say the margins are too low. They would say, I don't know what I'm doing because I never did a startup before. It was constant. And the mental and emotional endurance that you need to go through this process of fundraising, there's no preparation that you can do that could hear that many no's in a short period of time, especially when the people around you don't even really believe in you. Nobody believed in me. It was brutal. But again, didn't have a choice, right? So you do it, you pitch. And then I did a demo day, which is where I pitched my idea on a stage in front of maybe somewhere between 750 and 1,000 people. And nobody really bought into it again. I got a lot of meetings, but couldn't close any of them. And look, I'm not the best when it comes to pitching ideas. I'm a very practical person. I'm not one of those people that says I'm going to be $1 billion company in 2 years. But I have a vision, and I know what I'm doing, and I'm very old school in my thinking on how I approach business compared to how a lot of startup founders do it. I'm more of like a hybrid between a mental state of like a lifestyle business and a backed venture, a VC backed venture. I'm kind of like a middle ground. So we try to fundraise, doesn't really go successfully. Finally, someone who had seen us pitch came back, rallied a group together to raise 750. A year later, we knew we needed more money. So we went to go pitch again, couldn't get a lot of interest. Our investors came back to us, say, hey, we still believe in you. We want to give you more. So then they ended up giving me almost $1 million. Then from there, now keep in mind, my business is now starting to take off, right? I'm in 2019, going to 2020. It's starting to do well. I now start pitching my Series A. Again, nobody believes in me outside of my investors. I'm either getting too early, not enough traction, beginner's luck, I heard constantly. And, from there, I'm like, what do I have to do to get a check? Like, I am literally outperforming so many startups right now, and nobody's just giving me a chance other than the people that believed in me in the beginning. Well, finally, we got a bunch of term sheets. We chose an investor. COVID hits. And I'm telling you, I went from riding high to really low. And I'm trying to brainstorm. And my mentality is I don't care about macroeconomics. I don't care about geopolitical issues, any of that stuff. When you're an entrepreneur, I mean, obviously I care personally, but when you're an entrepreneur, you can't care about that stuff. You cannot be a victim of other people, of things you cannot control. You have got to be agile and think through things. And we did. We tried a whole bunch of new features, trying to see what would work. Something worked. And from there, we started skyrocketing again. We went on another upswing, another uptick. And it was really good. And then 2022 hits and the stock market falls, and all of a sudden people don't have money to buy things online. And, obviously, I'm running Tire Agent, and we're just focusing on selling tires, and people don't have really money. And e-com is not getting a lot of attention in the VC world. And again, same philosophy. I don't care. You have to think how you're going to get around it. We end up raising our Series B with our current investors. The traction is certainly there. 2 years later, I mean, you fast forward now to 2025, Tire Agent has sold over 2 million tires in 5 years. So that's kind of the way things happen. I mean, obviously I'm missing, I'm leaving out some things here and there that are very drama filled, right? But at the end of the day, I mean, we built a great business, and the hardest part was not getting customers and being agile. The hardest part was hiring people that were bought into the same work ethic, the same values, the camaraderie. That's the hardest part. Surrounding yourself with the right people. At the end of the day, we live in a country with 300 million people. You'll find customers if the product is in a category that already has demand. It's how you separate yourself from everyone else. And since the day I started, we have been a customer-centric business. You care about the customer first, you care about the other thing second, and the sales will come. Right? If you treat customers the way they deserve to be treated, and you do everything right, you'll get the referrals, you'll get people coming back, you'll get the sales. So you take care of the customer, the sales will come. And that's kind of how we've kind of evolved. But our culture is really unique because we're all genuinely friends here. Like, we all hang out with each other. We all talk to each other. We like spending time with each other. I mean, it's a real family friend atmosphere in this company, but we think with our hearts. And when it comes to taking care of our employees or taking care of customers, you got to have a heart. You can't be only about the money, because at some point people will see through that. You got to be genuine in what you're doing. And at Tire Agent, that's all we've tried to do.
Oh, that's awesome. Sounds like it was a good iteration, good evolution, and worked out well after kind of figuring out the areas that you wanted to focus on and kind of what that business would look at. So kind of now going along that, as we've caught up to the present day, before we jump to the two questions I always like to ask towards the end of each episode, if you were to first look and say, okay, take kind of where things are at today and look out to the next, 6 to 12 months, kind of where things might be headed, kind of what do you think those next steps would be, or kind of what would be that next 6 to 12 look like for you?
Yeah. I mean, for our company, we have always evolved each year. We are constantly launching new things. So last year, we bought a company that does tire services at motorsporting events. This year, we're expanding again, and we're going into, we really believe fleet is a very important niche market in the tire space. And so we're making a lot of bets on where the industry is going. And for us, we've bet more right than wrong, obviously, right? That's how we got here. But you don't have to bat 100%. You could bat 50%, you could bat 25%. As long as what you're hitting are home runs, that's all that matters, right? And so for us, we're always evolving the customer experience. We're always expanding into new markets. We are constantly investing in our employees, whether it's training, promoting, that type of stuff. So where I see the industry is I don't see the tire market going anywhere, and I don't think it will go anywhere anytime soon. But what we have to do as an innovator in our space is try to project forward what other niche markets need serving, and that's how we continue to grow.
No, it sounds like it's a good direction, and I think that that's a good thing to hit on as well. Is I think or sometimes you can kind of go one of two things. If you're swinging at everything that comes along your way, you're probably going to strike out too many times, and so there is that balance to where if you never swing at anything and you're so risk averse, you're not going to ever hit any of those home runs and you're going to stagnate as a business. And yet, if you swing at everything that's pitched at you, you're also not going to have a very long longevity. So I think it is kind of a hit on. You don't have to hit 100%, but if you can bat at a reasonable average and be able to, have those successes along the way and be able to take some of those risks, it's a good strategy and it works out well. So I think that makes perfect sense and sounds like it'll be a good or an exciting next few months for you guys. So it'll be fun to see how things continue to evolve. So, well, with that, now as we have kind of reached the present day, and now we've been looking a bit into the future, always a great time to transition to the two questions I always like to ask towards the end of each episode. So we're going to jump to those now. So the first question I'd like to ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? And what did you learn from it?
I think the worst decision, I don't think I made any particular bad decisions. I think I've been very lucky in that situation. But what I can tell you, the biggest thing I've learned is early on, I had to go through, I was originally hiring people just for the sake of hiring people to fill bodies, right? That's what a lot of entrepreneur does when you get really busy really quick. I wish I had taken the time and really hired the right skill sets at a very early age. Not so much like in the first year, because I hired really good people the first year, but went through like a transition period where we were trying to find our groove on like what type of people to hire and the structure. So that was one. The second one, I wish I invested more earlier on customer support infrastructure in terms of technology. So today, a lot of they use like a Zendesk, a Freshdesk, and a bunch of those support ticketing systems. If I tell you my first couple of years they were open, we look like a Wall Street trading floor. Someone would call in, we'd write down a piece of paper, and be like, "Who called?" Now, I want to say about 4 years ago, we heavily invested in organizing the customer follow-up flow when customers have questions or issues or whatever. And that was game changing for our business. It skyrocketed our customer experience from people's perspectives. And, I want to encourage every entrepreneur early on, the two things that I think are the most crucial when you're building a business: customer support and hiring. If you can master those things along with sales, that's like the triangle effect, right? And so I wish I had done that sooner, which is get a support ticketing system on earlier on and learned about it. But, you learn as you go, and like every entrepreneur, just learn from it, be agile, be open-minded, and continue to grow as a person, not just, your sales, but grow as an individual, because that helps you become a better CEO.
No, I think that's definitely good mistake to make, or a good one to learn from, and a good one that or set you up for success later on down the road. So perfect. Well, now second question I'd like to ask to follow that one up is, so now if you're talking, and it kind of dovetails a little bit to what you hit on, but now if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one rule of thumb you'd recommend?
Fail fast. Fail fast. Don't be in love with your idea. Be in love with being successful. Be in love with the customer, but do not be in love with the idea, because ideas change, and chances are whoever you are today is not who you'll be tomorrow if you're successful.
No, I like that. And I think that, sometimes people are worried about failure. You're sticking with it too long. And I think that, iterating, figuring out what works, what, where you can add the most value, what the market's demanding, and be willing to embrace kind of that failure in order to find the success is definitely a great way to go. So I love that as a rule of thumb. Well, now as we do wrap up the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Absolutely. So if they want to be a customer, go to www.tireagent.com. But if they want to just reach out to me as an individual, definitely LinkedIn. I'm very active there. I love hearing from people and hearing about entrepreneurs. So LinkedIn would be a great place to find me as an individual. And for tires, go on tireagent.com.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, support a great business, expand their connections, if nothing else, make a new best friend. So with that, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you listeners that are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. Just go to inventiveunicorn.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners. Make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review. Helps us to reach even more startups and small businesses, if I don't get too tongue-tied, to help them along their journey of success. And along that note, if you ever need help with patents or trademarks or anything else, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care.